Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be reacting to Alex Karp in an interview that I missed. I missed this one. This was on February 15th, 2023. Let me know in the chat if you caught this interview. I realized I was in Boston this weekend and it popped up on YouTube the other day and I texted Arnie. I was like, Arnie, is it just me or did we miss this interview? He was like, nope, I got that interview. You missed that interview. And I was like, where was I February 15th? And then I realized I was in Boston. So I really wasn't on YouTube that much that weekend. And I guess the video just never popped up afterwards. And so I caught some new Alex Karp for the first time in like 6 months. I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. So here's my reaction to one of the parts of this video. I'm probably going to do another video reacting to a different part. But this was a part where Karp is talking about the difference between hardware in the defense space and software. This was in the Netherlands, as you can see right here, February 15, 2023. And this was a conference kind of talking about the responsible use and development and deployment of artificial intelligence at scale, especially in the military. So here's Karp talking about data processing being the new superpower. And I want to give my thoughts on this and react to it. Here we go.
So just to drill down in that, if I, with my journalistic superpowers, will summarize that as saying what you're saying is that when we talk about wars, we talk about kind of mortars and tanks, but in fact, it's data processing is now the new superpower that is enabling the Ukrainians to more than match the Russians.
Well, yeah, you see, yeah, it used to be that something like an analytic package plus, yes, and what I'm saying on top of it is that that the differential lift by advanced augmented or digitalized or AI is so great that powers that know how to implement this, build upon it, can defeat powers that have been spending $65 billion a year over decades.
A more recent quote of yours, the power of advanced algorithms is now so great that it equates to having tactical nuclear weapons against an adversary with only conventional weapons.
This is a big quote by Karp. He said around that January, February time, basically saying that, look, like if you have data processing power, AI algorithms, and you don't have nukes, you basically have tactical nukes given how powerful these weapons are and how powerful these algorithms are in terms of combating real weapons, which is a big deal to say. And obviously we've seen what's happened on the battlefield since then.
Now, is that really true? We were hearing from Professor Lawrence Freeman this morning that when the war started, everyone thought that the Russian cyber offensive would overwhelm the Ukrainians, take out all of their civilian infrastructure. That has largely failed. What they're doing is a very kinetic attack on the Ukrainians.
Look, there's so much about this war that can't be discussed in public. I don't think that's exactly how this went down, but people in the room will know more than that about that than I, and so I don't think that's actually a fair assessment. And were that true, then you're assuming that the capacity. First of all, there's offensive cyber and there's offensive targeting. I'm in the offensive targeting. What we build, Meta Constellation, is in the offensive targeting business. It's a different.
Meta Constellation is using geospatial intelligence to be able to process real-time data to then be able to conduct targeting in mission critical situations on the battlefield. So that's what Karp is talking about there in terms of the product that they have with offensive targeting.
Business, but I would say so. What I think is we are at the very, very, very early days of AI, but in the last 6 months, we went from a world where AI was, and digitalized targeting and in general, like ability to take out targets, you could call it a digitalized kill chain, whatever you want to call it. It was either something for a highly erudite ethics discussion, which I find fascinating, or something that someone was pitching you to buy where the results were going to be a steak dinner. And this has now shifted to your ability to identify the right technology and implement it will determine what happens on the battlefield.
That right there is really important. So let's hop on that for the moment, then we'll keep going here. So what he said is a couple months ago, a year ago, whatever you want to call it, before AI really became mainstream, it was two things. It was someone's either trying to sell you, hey, you can use the software to try to kill people on the battlefield in a digitized way. And then when you get the product, it's nothing more than a steak dinner, right? Nothing exciting. Or it's a philosophical, ethical discussion that two parties are having because you don't have the geopolitical tensions arising for you to actually have to make a decision. Then Russia-Ukraine happens February 2022. Now it's a question of how far can the technology rapidly develop in order to actually be able to work for the side that most people want to win, which is Ukraine. And how do we not have a discussion or a steak dinner? How do we actually make this shit the thing that turns into the differentiating variable between the good guys winning and the bad guys winning? And Karp is saying that we've gotten to the point where algorithmic warfare and AI is now at the point where it's real, to the point where it's the new superpower, right? It is a tactical nuclear weapon, and it's not a discussion anymore.
And I don't think there's any dispute about that. In fact, one of the major things we need to do in the West is realize this lesson is completely understood by China and Russia. And we still spend a very small amount of our budgets on this kind of technology. So if you, I obviously very in favor of the general budget staying even, growing with inflation, going more in inflation. But if you look at budgets in the West, what are we spending that's differentiated from our adversaries? In business, you have a banality where you try to invest where people don't compete well against you. What we do very well in the West is figure out distributed systems that are powered by software that will allow you to fight. And this is a very specialized way of building things. This is why our software companies have done very well. Quite frankly, most of them from the West Coast of the US.
And this is why Karp is making the 0-1 Peter Thiel argument, right? He says you try to invest in places where where people can't compete. So if you're the best at sales in this specific world or this specific part of your business, you're going to invest there, right? If you're a software company and you're the best in UI, like Robinhood, and no one can beat you in UI, then even if UI is not really a moat, you still invest in UI because that is the one thing that's going to differentiate you. Karp is making an argument that the United States is good in software. It's a 0-1 thing. We have no competition yet. So let's keep investing in software and let's keep building the best companies in the world, which is why he's saying a lot of them come from the West Coast of the United States. The biggest companies in the world, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all coming from Silicon Valley for one reason, which is that we have a competitive advantage when it comes to software.
But this is why battle readiness that works this way is way. But what we need to learn is, wait a minute, what are we focused on? Who is making the decisions about acquiring advanced AI, digitalization, and what part of the budget goes? Have they ever implemented something that works? By the way, very basic things. You're going to get bombarded by various software products. Has the software ever been used in the battlefield? Should be the first question. Software is not a theoretical thing. I spent the first part of my life as an academic. There are a lot of theoretically relevant questions. The first question in a software context is, who's used it? How have they used it? What are the results? You can't, these things take 5-6 years to build if you're very good at it. And you need access to the battlefield. Like, you can't build these things in a lab. So one of the advantages, quite frankly, we've had is we've been on the battlefield. Why have we had that advantage? It's one of these bug feature things, because everyone in the Silicon Valley was bereft of common sense. They were busy exporting things to adversaries and corroding our system with carcinogens in the context of the consumer internet, so we got access to the battlefield.
This right here is also just like, Karp talks about this a lot, but it's one of those arguments that I think a lot of Palantir shareholders need to understand. One of the competitive advantages Palantir has is selling to governments software that is battle tested on the battlefield, because they chose to voluntarily protect the United States and the West and help them on the battlefield, because Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc. were too worried about internet consumer monetization via advertising. And so Palantir said, we don't really care about that. That's why they left Palo Alto and they went to Colorado and said, let's actually focus on stuff that matters. And stuff that matters is protecting Western values, not shoving more ads in your face. And that's why they were de facto the only company that really got the opportunity to even have a chance to work on the battlefield, which gave them all of the research and development, the R&D, to be able to build products.
So how, for the people in the room who are actually trying to buy this software, how do they know what software works, given it's all shrouded in secrecy and no one will really tell you?
Anybody in this room, I presume, who's buying software can get on the phone and talk to the people who are using the software. That's not their problem. The problem is what happens after you find out when it works. Is anyone at the top who's making these decisions talking to the people who are proxy on the battlefield? What portion of your budget goes to it? Probably 99% of your budget is going to very valuable things and not this kind of thing. So you need to have a wider swath. By the way, you also need a wider swath because you're going to do new things that aren't going to work.
Okay. This theme of this.
Okay, right there. That's the part that I wanted to react to. So obviously, this is a really, really important discussion by Karp, and we're reacting to more parts of this interview, but what he's saying there is just so incredibly important. The reason why Palantir works is because they got access to the battlefield, and the reason why competitors can't really compete with them, and broadly competing with the United States, is because there's not that many better software countries than the United States, and there's not that many better software companies for defense technology than Palantir. And as a result of that, Palantir has been able to capture this market. The question simply becomes how quickly, over the next couple of years, can this market that is emerging for defense tech, specifically within NATO countries, end up resulting in Palantir's bottom line? I mean, I don't even know if we're going to generate any revenue from all the free software we gave to Ukraine. And maybe we never generate a dollar from that, but that was essentially just a case study to be able to generate billions of dollars from other NATO countries. We will see what ends up happening, but what Karp said in this clip was just so important as a shareholder to recognize that if you're in this company for the long term, and you're in a company that has truly no competitive dynamics, only a competitive advantage, no competition when it comes to getting countries to procure their software, which could be worth a lot of billions of dollars over the next decade. So those are my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.